Prime Minister was forced to make a number of appointments following the resignations of David Davis and Boris Johnson. The cabinet reshuffle was completed yesterday evening, so let's take a look at those new appointments. Prominent Brexiteer during the referendum, Dominic Raab, replaces David Davis as Brexit Secretary to take the UK through the negotiations of leaving the EU. Meanwhile, over in the Foreign Office, Boris Johnson is replaced by the Health Secretary and former Remainer, Jeremy Hunt, while Matt Hancock moves from Culture to take over Health and Social Care. And former Attorney General Jeremy Wright moves to the role of Culture Secretary. And after a tumultuous day in Westminster, this image of Boris signing his own resignation letter appeared in time to make all the newspaper front pages this morning. Well, let's speak to our assistant political editor, Norman Smith, who's at Downing Street. So after yesterday, Norman, Theresa May is going to want time to try and recover things, reassert her authority, and time for no one else to make a move.
I think that's right, Simon. After the sort of manoeuvrings and mayhem of yesterday, there's a slight lull at the moment, a sense that people are just trying to work out how this is going to play out. Cabinet came and went without anything particular happening, it seems. No one said anything dramatic as they were leaving, and you just get a sense that on the Brexiteers' side, they are wondering what their next move should be. Certainly there seems no imminent threat of a leadership challenge. The Brexiteers actually trying to encourage their supporters not to put in those letters demanding a vote of no confidence. Why? Because they probably don't have the numbers to topple Mrs May. And if yesterday was all about division, threats to Mrs May, today we've seen almost a parade of unity. Have a listen to Michael Gove this morning.
So are you fully behind Theresa May's Brexit plan?
100%.
Have you considered resigning yourself over this?
Absolutely not.
And what do you think of Boris Johnson's decision and David Davis' decision to resign?
Well, I admire Boris and David very much. I'm sorry that they've left the government, but I hope you have a lovely day.
And is Theresa May now in trouble as a result of all this?
No.
And the new Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, like Boris Johnson, went for an early morning jog this morning. But unlike Boris Johnson, he committed himself to supporting Mrs May's new checkers plan when he left home this morning.
Will you hold firm on the Brexit plan?
Absolutely.
Is the government in crisis?
The other key figure, of course, is Liam Fox, the other pivotal Brexiteer in the cabinet, who's responsible for trying to do these trade deals, which many Brexiteers believe will be impossible under this new Chequers customs plan. Well, he wasn't saying much when he left this morning, but actually after cabinet, one of my colleagues shouted at him, "Are you going to resign?" And he turned and said no. So I think we can take it that the Brexiteers are staying inside the cabinet for now. Let's just have a look at Liam Fox as he left this morning.
Is the Brexit dream still alive? Do you still support the Prime Minister's Chequers plan? Is this a Brexit you campaigned for 2 years ago, Mr Fox?
Of course, the other thing one should, I suppose, always remember is that Mrs May is the great survivor of Westminster politics. When you look round at her cabinet, so many of them have gone. Senior figures have been forced to walk the plank. The Deputy Prime Minister Damien Green forced out, the Home Secretary Amber Rudd forced to quit. Another who had to go, of course, was the Defence Secretary Michael Fallon. And this morning he was suggesting that maybe yesterday could be a sort of cathartic moment for Team May.
They have cleared the air now. The rest of the cabinet are completely behind the plan, and I think what the resignations have done, and all resignations are painful, what they've done is demonstrated that there is no alternative. There is no other plan when it comes to the trade, the manufactured goods, the food that we send to Europe. There is no other plan. We have to have as smooth access as possible to that existing home market. Whatever new opportunities we want to pursue around the rest of the world, We have to have access to the European market, and to have that access, we have to pay a price for it.
As for Theresa May herself, well, she left Downing Street a short time ago wearing quite an elaborate fascinator hat. What do I read into that? I kind of think she's got her glad rags on. She's not going to be cowed by the plotting and manoeuvring against her. Make your own mind up. Have a look at Mrs May leaving this morning.
Mr. Johnson missed the cabinet this morning, sir. Is the Brexit dream dead? Is the Brexit dream dying, Prime Minister?
So the PM leaving Downing Street, almost as if to say, I'm not going to let the woes of the past 24 hours put me off my game. And I suspect Team May's communication boards will be hoping maybe that might get some decent photos and decent headlines in the papers after the bruising treatment Mrs May's received this morning. As for the cabinet, well, Downing Street tweeted out some pictures of the cabinet, all smiles around the table as the new cabinet gathered, of course devoid of one B. Johnson of the Foreign Office and one D. Davis of the Brexit department. And that too may yet play to Mrs May's advantage, not just because she is no longer having to deal with perhaps two of her more troublesome cabinet members, but also those remaining inside the cabinet, including the remaining Brexiteers, are now all pretty much bound into her Chequers plan and bound into her leadership. There's no way out for them. They have to stick with Mrs May. And I think there will be a sense that perhaps the bulk of the party are pretty apprehensive about the idea of plunging into another leadership contest, which could involve up to 3 months of chaos and manoeuvring. There is no real appetite to go down that road, and that may give Mrs May enough time to just try and settle things down, to try and reassert her authority. And it seems to me the next real crunch for her will probably come when we get the reaction of Brussels to the Chequers plan, because if Brussels says, no, we don't like this, then expect all the tensions and pressure for an alternative plan to resurface, and maybe it's then that the likes of Boris Johnson could make his move.